Okay, I'm live. It's Saturday, April 11th, 8 p.m. right now. I'm Amanda with Grandma's Wealth Wisdom. If you're catching the recording of this, thank you so much for watching. I'm really excited about the topic we're going to talk about today. What money practices could I continue and discontinue? And as you might have seen in the description, particularly, I thought of some specific money practices like giving. Should I continue giving, or is that something to discontinue during a crisis? Saving, and if you know anything about Grandma's Wealth Wisdom, we talk about three different types of saving. Savings for the short term, like the holidays that'll come still in December, right? Um, the medium term, things like your next car, roof repair, things that happen less frequently than annually. And then long term for things like retirement or your kids' college, right? Should I continue paying extra on debt, or should I just pay the minimum? Should I continue contributing to a 401k and or an IRA if you're already doing that? Should I continue having money meetings with my significant other? We're going to talk about each of those things today. Um, First, I want to tell you, or actually, I want to share with you a quote that I found helpful today. It's this from Abraham Maslow, and he says, in any given moment, we have two options: to step forward into growth or back into safety. Um, Maslow is the Maslow from Maslow's hierarchy of needs, Abraham Maslow. And if you're not familiar with the hierarchy of needs, it's basically a pyramid that at the bottom of the pyramid are your basic needs like food, shelter, water. And then as you go up the pyramid, you get things that aren't essential for your survival, but help you feel actualized as a human being. Probably should have looked this up so I knew exactly which level, like which parts of the hierarchy of needs, but it goes through things like community, feeling connected. It's got things like having a sense of purpose and meaning to your life. Those Once you've got like your basic needs covered, you can move up the pyramid right into those other ones. Maybe I should just Google this really quick so I can put an image on the screen. So I'm just going to put Maslow's hierarchy of needs because it's something really common people talk about a lot. Here we go. From the Googles, I found a whole bunch of images. I'm just going to put this one. This one looks about right. Can I make this full screen? Just a minute. I clicked the wrong thing. Oh, yeah, here we go. So, share my screen and go application window. Nope, Chrome tab. There we go. And share. Make sure you can see this. Okay, so there's the hierarchy of needs. It's kind of small on my screen, but hopefully you can expand. And you've got, oh, and there's ads for Adobe. So physiological needs, food, shelter, a place to put your head, water, um, a place to sleep, right, without being fearful. Safety needs, that goes, for sure, not being fearful. Belonging, community, esteem, feeling a sense of accomplishment, and then self-actualization, achieving one's full potential. I'm going to go back for a second and just show you some of the other. It's not letting me go back. Anyway, there's others. So you can just Google Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you'll see them. But that is the reason I'm talking about that is because if that's a helpful framework for thinking about what you're doing with this money, with any money that you have in a time of crisis. You have to, sorry, I'm adjusting. You have to make sure, basic needs are covered, right? You've got your food, your shelter, your water, place to lay your head. You feel safe and secure in that place. And then from there, you can think about how you're connected to community and then also fulfilling that sense of purpose in your life too. And when I think about, like when I'm about to say, here's what I'm going to choose to do with this money, I can choose whether to use that to help me grow and move up the hierarchy of needs, or I can use that to like make sure I'm safe, right? And that's not necessarily going backwards, it's also taking care of my foundation, making sure that I don't have to worry about being homeless in a few months or a few years, right? So, as we're talking about what should you continue or discontinue, think about both of those things and finding your unique balance of self actualization, and how you make sure each of those parts of that hierarchy of needs is accounted for in what you're doing with your money. Okay, let me hide that. Go back to the question of the day. What money practices should I continue and discontinue? Now I'm going to start with giving because a lot of people, when they give, they actually think of it as a tithe. Whether they're religious or not, it's just kind of become popular for lots of people to take the money that they get and automatically give 10%. That's actually something that's pretty simple to keep doing when you're in crisis, or there's crisis happening around you. If you're still getting paid, you still give 10% of what you receive to help others. And actually, because that connectedness to community and feeling secure in that is part of the hierarchy of needs, and it actually comes before the self, right? And the self purpose and meaning. It's actually very, very cool that giving can actually help you feel more hopeful, and that can be part of your sense of purpose. Um, I was listening to a podcast that was talking about moving from hopelessness to helpfulness, and giving is what helps us do that, right? And I think that can be a great thing to do. Now, maybe before you were giving 10% and it was this much, right? And now that you're getting paid less, you're giving is this much because it's, just 10%. That's great. I actually love that the tithe is like a 10% because it can adjust as your income adjusts. When you make more income, you give more. When you make less income, you give less. And actually, I want you to keep that idea of a percentage in mind as we talk about the other things that you could continue or discontinue doing. Because when you think about it as a percentage, maybe you're able to be easier to adjust it as your life adjusts during a crisis. So saving, for example, we talk about grandma's, or kind of the next one, saving, that I want to talk about. We talk about grandma's 10-10-10 formula, saving 10% for short term, 10% for medium term, and 10% for long term. So every time you get paid, you set aside 10%, so you're going to be able to buy birthday presents and cover the holidays, go on the family vacation, all the things that kind of happen on an annual basis, or like less often than monthly. So like oil changes, right? Might just be every 3 months. And so you're doing 10% for that, 10% for the medium term to help cover, a roof repair, buying a car, maybe a big vacation you want to take, or a big anniversary that's coming up. Maybe you want to go back to get a master's degree that can fit into the medium term, whatever is longer than 1 year, or it happens less often than 1 year. And then the long term, retirement, kids' college, things that are more long term that way. And if you're doing the 10-10-10 savings formula and 10%, the minute your income goes down and you find yourself in a crisis, you can adjust accordingly. Again, if you were giving, this much, or not giving, saving this much, then your pay gets cut in half. You cut your saving in half as well. But that 10% idea is a really good idea. Now, remember Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if that half that you're now getting paid or whatever it is only covers your basic needs like food, water, shelter, a place to sleep, then maybe you do have to cut out saving temporarily. But then as your income grows again, you add that back in, and keep going with the percentage kind of idea. Paying extra on debt, that's the next one. Same kind of thing might be true. This idea that if your pay got cut, you're making less than you were before, and you're just meeting your basic expenses, you don't have anything extra, then maybe you can't pay any extra on that debt right now. But maybe, so this is actually one of the really common questions that has been asked of me is, well, should I pay the extra on the debt or should I set it aside in case I need it? Like in case my hours go down or I get laid off or, this coronavirus lasts longer than we all think it will. Um, that's a great question. And there's a couple things to think about. You got to think about the interest rates on whatever debt you have. You've got to think about your disciplined level. Like if that money is just sitting in your checking or savings account and it's really easily accessible, are you just going to spend it rather than keeping it for um, if the crisis gets worse or, if your experience of the crisis gets worse? Those are two really important things to think about. But if it's a pretty low interest, like maybe you were adding $20 to your mortgage, or let's $200 to your mortgage, and your mortgage is 3.5%. Let's just use that as an example. And you know that 200 extra bucks, you could put it into like a savings account that is a little harder to access to. You can't just transfer it really easily back to your checking. You don't have any debit cards or checks for that savings account. Then maybe that would be smarter, because once that $200 pays off your mortgage, you either have to refinance your mortgage and potentially get a higher interest rate, or you have to sell your home in order to get that $200 back, right? I don't know any other ways to get that $200 out of the walls of my house, right? Once I've paid off that mortgage. Same with, you could pay extra on a credit card and you automatically get that 200. I'm just using 200 as the example, right? Anything extra that you pay, you get back immediately to spend if you want. So maybe in that case, you do continue paying extra, especially if that credit card's at 20%, 29% interest or whatever. Again, just some things to think about. Be sure you're taking your unique situation into thinking, should I continue paying extra on my debt during this time? Depends on the kind of debt, depends on the interest rate, depends on your discipline level, right? Now, the controversial one, contributing to a 401k or IRA. Now, let's pretend there's a couple different scenarios here. First, let's pretend you are still working, maybe just working from home, and you contribute 5%, your employer matches 5%, and you're thinking, well, if I put this money into my 401k and then things get worse or I get laid off or something, will I have regretted that? Should I just save it in my savings account instead? One interesting thing, it was actually what we're going to talk about tomorrow, is the rules have changed about when you can access retirement funds early before retirement. So be sure you tune in tomorrow to help to think more about that if that's where you are. And then also the match, right? And especially if you end up getting laid off, then all kinds of options open up with your 401k, depending on your vesting schedule. So that's another thing to think about. If you're going to contribute and get a match, but the match isn't going to vest for 2 more years, and so if you get laid off within the next 6 months or something, you don't get any of that match, right? You got to think through those kind of things and make sure you know all the P's and Q's, all the dotted I's and crossed T's of the rules with your 401k. On the other hand, maybe you have an IRA that you contribute to yourself outside of any employer. You do $6,000 a year, which is the max, or maybe you're a little older and you're contributing a little more. Should you keep doing that? Well, guess what? One of the great things is that you have time to decide. Again, if you have the discipline to, let's say you're doing $500 a month automatically going into your IRA, you have the discipline, you could put that temporarily in savings and then just add it all at once when you feel like the crisis is over, right? Or at least pretty much over. You feel more safe and secure. That's totally an option. The one thing you want to think about, which I think is kind of almost a myth is this whole thing of, if you're buying stock, which is typically what people do when they put money into an IRA, if you're buying stock and you do $500 a month versus one time putting in $6,000 like all at once, you like when you buy all at once, you don't know if it's high or if it's low. And you kind of risk like December, wherever the market is, and you put money into your IRA, then you risk like it could be higher, it could be low, then you don't know. And if it's low, great, you bought when it's low, but if it's high, maybe you should have bought a few months earlier. So it's always the timing of the market thing. Whereas if you do your $500 each month, you might sometimes buy high, sometimes buy low, go back and forth, and it's less of a concern. At least that's kind of the typical thinking. Grandma would have you question all of that, but at least if you for sure are going to contribute to an IRA, those are the kinds of things to be thinking about, right? Do I want to take the risk that where the market's going to be at my last possible deadline, or do I have the discipline to not use that money? Is it more important for me to have it to use now versus setting it aside for when I'm 59 and a half or beyond, so on and so forth. And again, tune in tomorrow. We're going to talk about some of the unique opportunities you have with the money that is in a 401k or an IRA already. Right now, I'm just talking about contributing. And then this last one, having money meetings. I think these are so critical. We did a podcast episode about how important it is, or it was like one of the points within that episode about having money meetings with the people that you make decisions around money with. When you're asking, should I continue giving or should I discontinue? Should I continue or discontinue saving? Should I continue or discontinuing paying debt, extra on debt? Should I continue or discontinue contributing to my 401k or IRA? These are the things to involve the people around you who help you make decisions about money with. Mostly, probably your significant other, right? And I think this is probably a time to ramp up how often you have those money meetings. When people are first starting with planning, what they're going to do with their money and really taking a strategy of, we got paid, what are we going to do with this money now? They're often meeting once a week to sit down. Hey, we just got this. What do we need it to do for us until we get more money, so on and so forth. And then over time, as you figure out, what's like your average electric bill and, stuff like that, you can do it less frequently. Maybe once a month, you review, okay, here's how this month went. Here's what we think is going to happen next month. Let's adjust anything that we typically would do accordingly. Keep things flexible that need to be flexible. But maybe during this time, you actually need to ramp up how often you're talking, because maybe your income is different than it used to be. Maybe it's variable right now and it used to be steady. Maybe there's some extra needs that you have to make sure that you cover, right? There's lots of changes. Probably, I would guess, those money meetings you have with the people that you commingle your money with are even more important. And for those who are single, or you're the only one that makes your decisions about your money, you don't talk to anybody else, maybe you and your spouse have totally separate accounts or something, or you're single, then have those money meetings with yourself more regularly. And we used to, or actually when we talk about these money meetings, we talk about, go out for coffee, get some ice cream, do something that would be really enjoyable for these. And I think that rule continues to apply. Instead of like going out for ice cream, bring some ice cream home, or have an extra cup of coffee in the morning, or whatever it is that brings you joy. Make sure you bring that to this money meeting, either with yourself or with other people that you want to involve in that. So there you have it. What should you continue and discontinue? Hopefully I gave you some thoughts to think about. I think this is a really important question as you're questioning what you do with your money during a crisis, and how do you continue to manage your money rather than let your money manage you, or life circumstances manage your money. one of the fundamentals of what we think about is that if you don't choose what you do with your money, someone else will. Whether it be the advertisers or the financial advisor that you're working with, or your significant other, or your kids, or your parents, or your aunt or uncle, brother, sister, someone else will choose what you do with your money if you don't sit down and make those choices for yourself. So if you take nothing else from this video, I encourage you to sit down and question all those things. Should I continue or discontinue this, that, and the other? Okay? So that's it for today. I have this cool thing Brandon told me to put at the bottom. For Grandma's top tips, visit grandmaswealthwisdom.com. We've got this cool PDF there called Grandma's Top Tips for an Independent Financial Future. Totally, if you like these tips, there's some really great ones in there about, for instance, the difference between saving and investing. So be sure you get those. You can find them right there on the homepage or on any page on our website, grandmaswealthwisdom.com. And I think I mentioned this earlier, but I'll mention it again. The topic for tomorrow, Sunday, happy Easter for those celebrating Easter. When is it time to tap into retirement funds? I do have to tell you a quick story. Today, my son, he'll be 2 later this month. He did his first ever Easter egg hunt. It's going to rain tomorrow, so we did it in the backyard today. And then we went for a little walk around the neighborhood. We came back and we did a little one inside. He's totally caught on to Easter egg hunting. So we're going to totally do that a few times tomorrow as well. He ate all the treats, aka little cheese bunny crackers. They're like cheese crackers in the shapes of bunnies. He ate all of them out of the eggs that we hid. There's only like 12 eggs and one little cracker in each egg. So we got to find something else to stuff them with. But that's my like little story for today. It was a lot of fun. I want to continue having little fun things like that during the shelter in place. His birthday is coming up in a couple weeks. And so I'm looking for suggestions. If you have ideas how to make his birthday fun when we can't have anybody over, it's just us here. And he's going to be 2. So yeah, the comment in the comments on the video. Let me know if you got some ideas. Okay, that's it for today. Have a good night. I will talk to you again tomorrow for Easter. Take care. Peace.